Hey, welcome back to the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge, and today we have Thunderbolts. Asterisk. Yeah, the asterisk is important. I'll get to that later. If you don't already know, it's kind of hard to talk about this one. Mainly one, because it's a Marvel film, and usually everybody has seen a Marvel film by now that's sitting in theaters. Came out in May. It's now the end of August-ish, right around there. So, you usually don't have to worry about spoiling anything for anybody. But I don't think enough people really saw it. I mean, sure, plenty of people did, but it wasn't a $1 billion first weekend in May blockbuster making $1 billion like say an Avengers film. You know, and that's kind of thing what we deal with these days because we're not in that heyday of that original, first three phases or whatever of Marvel, and it's expanding. It's just like the Marvel universe in the comics. It is there's so much more to discover in the Marvel universe. Characters that aren't exactly A-list characters, but they still have fun and sometimes just crazy stories to be told. And this is one of those stories. This is again from this year, 2025, back in May. It is 2 hours and 8 minutes long, give or take. And it is, just like this says right here, it's an unconventional team of anti-heroes. So, yeah, not exactly Captain America, not exactly Thor and Iron Man. Well, each of them have their flaws. Oh, okay, Cap was pretty much a good guy all around. But Tony, Iron Man, he was kind of for a while a reluctant hero, or at least a hero that always saw an angle to, you know, benefit himself in a certain way. And Thor was just sort of thrown into it after being humiliated for his own just ego, for thinking he was better than most people, or that he just sort of deserved what he got. These are people that we've seen in other films, every single one of these. And it is surprisingly not led by the most famous, the longest running star. It is anchored by him, but Bucky, Sebastian Stan, playing Winter Soldier, or whatever he wants to call himself at this point, he's a senator in this. We saw a hint of that back in the Captain America Brave New World movie. And you understand why, not just from a story perspective, but for a Marvel film structure perspective, Marvel Universe, the MCU perspective, that while Sam Wilson was going to become Captain America, it opened the doors for the government to try to make their own Captain America, which became John Walker in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series on Disney Plus. And that left, well, people are like, well, wasn't Bucky Captain America at one point after Steve was killed in the comics? Yeah, absolutely he was, before Sam got the role. But there's other stories for Bucky, and that is him leading the Thunderbolts. Now, in the comics, there have been many iterations of the Thunderbolts. I'm not going to go too crazy deep into this because most of you don't read comics or don't care. But the very first introduction of the Thunderbolts was at a time in the 90s when the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, and the X-Men. No, the X-Men. Was the X-Men gotten rid of? Also, no, I don't think they were. But they always kind of hung out in their own corner of the Marvel Universe many times. Very often. They do cross over and they all, they know each other, but and sometimes they fight. But yeah, for the most part, their storylines kind of kept to themselves, while Avengers and Fantastic Four were practically neighbors most of the time, and they dealt with New York City and beyond and cosmic events and things like that. At one point, they fought. Oh, yeah, it did have the X-Men involved, but the X-Men, yeah, whatever. Due to something that had to do with the X-Men, the Avengers and the Fantastic Four were wiped from existence. They were dead for as far as anybody knew, and to fill that hole, that gap in the superhero heroic realm of the MCU, sorry, not the MCU, the Marvel Universe 616, a new team of heroes came out of nowhere called the Thunderbolts to fill that gap and do the heroic deeds. And it was at a time before the internet, or at least really close to the internet, when you couldn't really be spoiled as easily. And it was kind of a great thing because I remember buying the book and just sitting down and reading it that the day it came out and not having been spoiled on anything on the last page. We see the heroes talking to each other, discussing how things went after this battle that kind of introduced them to the world. They take off their masks, and they're the masters of evil. There was an evil team, the bad guys that were called the Masters of Evil. And they were absolutely bad guys at that point, pretending to be good guys, and basically using that as a premise to get the things they wanted. They were playing at being good guys. But over time, as they did more good things and saw how it was reflected in their lives and in the world around them, a lot of them became heroes. Some of them even became Avengers. Songbird, who used to be a character named Screaming Mimi. Yeah, you can look it up. All these characters were bad guys that had once almost beaten the Avengers within an inch of their lives at one point, took over their mansion in Manhattan. But they became the biggest heroes in the Marvel universe for a time. Led by Baron Zemo, who was playing the good guy leader, Citizen V. Yeah, I know this is a whole lot of exposition, but it was bad guys becoming good guys. In many cases, each of these characters have been seen as bad guys in different films, or at least not the heroes you'd expect them to be. Yelena, at the very center, this Black Widow's sister, she's fought Hawkeye. She blamed him for Natasha's death. Spoilers from Avengers films, and she has gone on her own spiral. And she is kind of the central figure, not kind of, but she really is the central figure in this movie. Even though everybody has their own storylines, we know John Walker from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where he was the Captain America, played by Wyatt Russell, the son of Kurt Russell. Played by Wyatt Russell, and he got a lot of hate. Well, that's good, technically, but if people don't understand why they hate him, he's meant to be hated. He's a jerk. John Walker, from his introduction to the comics, was pretty much a jerk. He fought Cap. He was hired by the government to take Cap's place when Cap quit, because he wasn't about to be bought out by the government. He wasn't going to be a tool of the government. He wasn't going to be their mascot. He stood for America, not for a president, not for a political party. He stood for America. But they brought in John Walker to take his place, to play the U.S. agent, and that's what we get in this film. We get the guy who is, or at least at first, was working for the government, and then things went sour, if you saw the series, for him, and he's just taken on special jobs. We get Ghost, who we saw in the Ant-Man and the Wasp film, who has been sent in certain missions to acquire certain things, because she can pass through walls, and she can turn invisible, she can do all sorts of things. She's pretty dangerous. We also have Taskmaster, who came out of the Red Room from the Black Widow film. We get to see her. And we also get, we get the Red Guardian, which is Natasha and Yelena's dad. The fake dad, the family that they were all given as part of their sleeper agent role in Ohio when they were trying to infiltrate the government in the 80s, 90s, early 90s. So, and he's just the Russian Captain America, or at least he likes to think he is as important and as impactful as Captain America. So if you had no idea who all these characters were, it means you haven't been keeping up with all the films in the series, and I know that can be burdensome. That's one of the things that I find frustrating with the Marvel Universe, the MCU, because even though I love the comics, and I read a lot of the comics, I don't read all of them, but I read a lot of the comics, one of the hardest things for normal people who aren't comic nerds is to keep up with so much. And for a while, after Endgame, Marvel was throwing everything at us on Disney Plus, the brand new service Disney Plus. Well, why not? Everybody loved Marvel. Why not more Marvel? And to a certain degree, some people liked it, some people didn't, and then sometimes people just thought it was just too much, and they weren't going to watch a new series every 2-3 months. They got the word, they got the feedback, and they've kind of slowed down. So we're only getting 2, maybe 3 movies a year at most. It still seems like a lot. And a lot of them are directly unrelated to each other. We had Thunderbolts in May, we had Fantastic Four in July, and we're not getting anything else in theaters for the rest of the year. Usually there's something in November, December. But this is all to say, why the Thunderbolts? Why even a movie? Well, this is kind of a unique opportunity to tell a story at the cinematic level. Not This could have also been a series, and I think we would have had greater depth in getting to know each of these characters. But each of them had been introduced in previous films, which sort of again connects all these different films and doesn't waste characters, doesn't just make them show up and then kill them off at the end of the movie or just make them go off into nowhere. There's plenty more that have just gone off into nowhere after so many things have been slowed down, mainly due to the pandemic and the filming schedules, and just not throwing something at the audience every month. Which, yes, again, my main thing is that so much that comes out of Marvel is that they don't have a story that stands on their own, and every movie or every show seems to be a stepping stone to the next thing. And I love continuity, and I love keeping track of canon and keeping all this stuff organized and knowing, this connects to this connects to this. I love the shared universe. I absolutely do. But I also like good storytelling, and so many times people have a problem with the filmmakers being beholden to telling what seems to be the introduction to another bigger story. And that's obnoxious as anything. Because I want a great story with Moon Knight, I want a great story with Ms. Marvel, I want a great story with She-Hulk. Yes, I enjoy She-Hulk. I also like Tatiana Maslany, but still. And one of the great things about the Fantastic Four movie that came out is that it was not reliant upon anything else that had come before it, which also worked against it at the same time. Nobody knows what they want. Everything is sort of all over the place. It all comes down to being able to tell a good story with characters that you care about. And one of the great things about this is that these characters are very human. There's technically not a god among them, technically. There is Bob, but I kind of don't want to spoil anything about Bob. But Bob is, if all these guys are just anti-heroes with no powers, for the most part, there's a super soldier serum in two of them. And the Ghost certainly has sort of enhanced abilities, and Elena has been trained to the hilt to be one of the most deadly people on the planet. Yeah. And Bucky. He's one of the super soldiers. And we got Cruella de Vil. No. The De Fontaine. Why can't I say her name? Valentina De Fontaine, who is, she's an old school Steranko era spy, villain, hero, lover of Nick Fury, interpreted in a whole different way here. But yes, this film does stand on its own, but it also does at the same time, as I was stating, frustratingly, is a stepping stone to something bigger, which is encapsulated in that little asterisk at the end of the title. And I'm going to spoil this because it's only been in all the advertising everywhere, and if you haven't seen it already, well, I'm sorry, but they are the new Avengers. They are so underpowered compared to the Avengers we know and love. But this story focuses on each of these dealing with the things they've done in the past and living with it in the present. And some of them are not handling it well. Some wish for glory days, like the Red Guardian. That's how he compensates for it. He has a bright disposition at all times whenever he can be around people he wants to be part of a team. He wants to do good. He wants to be a hero. He wants, just like Captain America, he wants to be a hero. He doesn't want to be held back by ideologies of a nation or anything else, or a country that's basically forgotten him. Yelena is depressed utterly. Again, she's at the core of this. And don't think this is going to be like a really sad movie where everybody's sad and depressed. They are, but it's not about that necessarily. They all deal with certain levels of depression in their own way, just like Thor was dealing with the loss of so many after the end of Avengers Infinity War. At the beginning of Endgame, he was just eating himself into oblivion, eating and drinking himself into oblivion, and just sort of feeling sorry for himself. And just sort of giving up. Because he feels that he failed. Even though he struck the killing blow on Thanos. Eventually. But each of these people, we see them go through their whole issues with everything. Making decisions that, they, especially Elena, can't seem to live with. And they happen upon a certain character who holds up a mirror to what they're feeling and makes them realize, well, let's just say it makes it a whole lot worse for some of them. And that character is also going through some stuff that he doesn't fully understand. And it's pretty much a disability at this point. But imagine a person with super abilities that's also their disability. Imagine being the most powerful character possibly in the Marvel Universe, and you can't dare to cut loose. Because if you do, you could harm everybody. So this is a fun but also serious way of looking at heroes and looking at feeling worthy not just to be a hero, but feeling worthy enough just to exist. Because there's a lot of this. Yelena is bored, she's depressed, she's checked out, she wants something better, she's aimless. When she's not drinking herself into oblivion herself, she's just going through the motions. So this is, to me, it is a much deeper, much more insightful film. Yes, this first hour of the film is a lot of exposition in the middle of action, where people have to describe who they are and what they do, and they snipe at each other and they make fun of, oh, you're the dime store Captain America, oh, you're the ghost girl, whatever. Like they're sniping at each other, but it also tells us who they are and it reflects upon them. So it tells us through their eyes what they think of the others. And this is a team that should not exist, probably. It should not as a normal superhero movie. And they see themselves as bad guys. In contrast to the comic book where they actually were bad guys, they have done things that bad guys have done, and worse than sometimes the Masters of Evil have done, in the real world sense. And they do not feel like heroes. But wouldn't it be great if they could change who they were? And maybe they find a way to do that. So if you haven't seen the film, I've spoiled a little bit here and there about the tone and some of the characters. I highly recommend this. This is actually one of the better Marvel films in a long time. Whether you're just like, I don't know who any of these people are, I didn't see Ant-Man and the Wasp, or I didn't see what was happening over in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and some of these characters I don't care about. It's okay. You didn't know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were, and while that was a much more comedic, much more bombastic kind of film where humor was a big part of it, even though James Gunn did a great job at giving us some great depth of character and conflict between the heroes themselves. That's kind of what they're doing here. It's just a little bit darker because we are dealing with villains, and while Peter Quill and Gamora and Drax and Rocket and Groot are all criminals themselves, I kind of see that as kind of in the core inspiration for the structure of this. And I think with their newfound title of the New Avengers, even though some people don't like that. In fact, the entire end credit sequence shows the world pushing back, which reflects very often the way we interact with our favorite pop culture films. Oh, it's not my Princess Leia, or not my Luke Skywalker, it's not my Captain America. It's a very clear reflection upon who we are as fans. and how we put that stuff out there. So yeah, definitely take some time. I would suggest seeing the other things that lead up to them beforehand, all of which would be the Black Widow movie. That's most important. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier series on Disney Plus. These are all on Disney Plus right now, by the way. Yes. We also have so Black Widow, Black Widow, Black Widow. This is very much a sequel to Black Widow for the most part. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the Ant-Man and the Wasp. That's the second film, and we've seen her in a few other things too as well, including Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Black Widow and things like that. And was she in Hawkeye? I can't remember. So yeah, I think she was in Hawkeye. I can't remember. Even I'm lost at this point. I think this is something that's really worth checking out, because it is, while it stands on its own, it does the thing that I said I don't like at the same time, and it is a stepping stone to the next phase of things to come. It technically is the closing part of that last phase, and Fantastic Four was the first steps of the next phase. But that's all right. I don't have to care about the numbers where things end and begin. They do connect, and that is its glory and its bane at the same time. So if you get a chance and you want to kind of move your way back into the Marvel Universe, and you've kind of gotten just overwhelmed by all the stuff that's going on, check it out. Check this out. I think it reflects heroes that could be any one of us. None of us are a billionaire. None of us are a god. None of us are a super soldier with a perfect body living out of time after fighting a world war. So they're kind of their own. Those are the big three for the Avengers. And yeah, we can't necessarily identify that, but we can identify with depression. We can identify with not having focus in our lives, or feeling that maybe we don't live up to our potential, or that we're going nowhere. This doesn't sound like a great selling point. It doesn't feel like it's the kind of thing where you're like, oh my gosh, I really want to watch this heroic film. It is a story of heroes, but it doesn't come from a place where they're already established as heroes. Tony did have to move into his position as being a hero despite himself. Same thing with Thor. Cap seemed to be born into it, because he was a hero well before he ever got the body. So, yeah. This is taking it from a different angle. Definitely check it out. I already picked it yesterday, the tomorrow's episode. So, by the way, do want to remind you that there is a mid-credit sequence and an end credit sequence. The mid one is just silly. It's funny. The end credit sequence, of course, has impact on things to come. And it takes place 14 months after the end of the main part of the film. So they've been the New Avengers for a good couple months, for at least a year at the point of the end of those credits. And yeah, it has a strong tie to the next phase for things to come. So, yeah. Although Kevin Feige says it may not exactly look the way you think it is. But, Kevin, you mess with our heads so much as it is. I'm just going to wait for it. I don't want spoilers. We're just going to see what it is. It looks like something very specific. And the musical cue is right there. So tomorrow we have number 48 on the list. I've already moved it over. Number 48 was Gulliver's Travels. Yep, Gulliver's Travels, starring Jack Black. That's what we're watching next. I'm not the document already closed. Gulliver's Travels is what we're watching next in the Disney Plus Everyday Challenge. I'll see you back here tomorrow with that.